The IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari posted an English-language video on Sunday evening in which he declared, "We are approaching a broad escalation in the north. Hezbollah is endangering the future of Lebanon. However, there are still intense battles taking place in Gaza, and the IDF is in the middle of dismantling one of the last remaining Hamas battalions." Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your boots on the ground report about what is happening in Israel on this 255th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and the many different regional proxies of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. Before we get into the news, I would like to wish a happy Muslim holiday to all the citizens of Israel. We all pray for more peaceful times. Due to this Muslim holiday, the past 24 hours were relatively quiet on Israel's northern border as the rate of fire by Hezbollah into northern Israel dropped noticeably. However, news portals in Lebanon reported that there were some IDF airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in the south of the country, and both sides appear to be making preparations for possible escalation. In fact, IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari referred to the situation in the north of the country and the rising tensions with Hezbollah in the daily briefings and in English video that was posted on Sunday evening.
Hezbollah is jeopardizing the future of Lebanon so that it can be a shield for Hamas. A shield for the Hamas terrorists, the one that murdered the elderly, raped women, burned children, and kidnapped Jews, Muslims, and Christians during their massacre on October 7th. When we say that we will not let October 7th happen again on any one of our borders, we mean it.
My own comment on this situation is that it must be obvious to everyone at this point that Iran's terrorist affiliates continue to drag the region into destruction. Israel will continue to fight against Iran's axis of evil on all fronts in Gaza and Lebanon while we work towards a safer future for the Middle East and the entire world. October 7th cannot happen again on any of Israel's borders. Israel has the duty to protect its citizens. We will fulfill this duty at any cost. Wherever you're watching this, anywhere in the world, you have every right to expect your own government, police, and army to protect you from Iran and its terrorist proxies as well. We are standing strong here for the entire civilized world, and the civilized world should be giving us maximum support while also preparing for the soon coming day when Iran tries to bring this fight to your doorsteps in the United States or Europe. Before we continue, please help us share the truth. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Now let's continue with the news. In Lebanon, it was reported that IDF drones attacked in the south of the country and caused damage. Aside from these attacks, there was a relative calm on the northern border in terms of shooting over the past 24 hours. As I said before, this calm was the result of the beginning of the Muslim holiday of Eid. However, there were some incidents of the firing from Lebanon, including a drone launch that was detected early Sunday morning. The incoming drone was intercepted over Lebanese territory. The IDF, for its part, has also moderated the rate of attacks it is launching against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, although in the afternoon IDF aircraft attacked a military structure of Hezbollah in the Yarun area. Also, the forces carried out artillery fire to remove a threat to the Amra area in southern Lebanon. On Saturday night, IDF forces attacked a military structure of the Hezbollah organization in the area of the village of Kila and the terrorist infrastructure of the organization in the area of Marvin in southern Lebanon. In addition, Air Force fighter jets attacked a number of terrorist targets in 4 different areas in southern Lebanon on Sunday evening. Among the targets that were attacked were terrorist infrastructures in the areas of Kara and Taibe, alongside military buildings in the areas of Mechaviv and Kafar Kila. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on events on the northern border. Once again, I will ask you to lend a hand to the truth, share our videos on YouTube, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. If you'd like to receive more videos like this one, please consider making a financial donation by clicking the YouTube donate button here or by going to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. Next week, in my special weekly series, My State, we will travel to the northern border between Israel and Lebanon and see the war that is raging on that front. Now back into the news. As Israelis were in mourning on Monday morning, following a very difficult few days which saw a total of 12 IDF soldiers killed in action while fighting in the Gaza Strip. In order to answer the questions of why so many Israeli soldiers have been killed in such a short period of time, it is necessary to take a closer look at the fighting and keep in mind that recently the violence was greatly intensified. Any explanation needs to begin with a clear understanding that IDF forces continue fighting against the Rafah battalion of Hamas. The destruction of this battalion, which was one of Hamas's most highly trained and motivated military formations, is nearly complete. But the surviving fighters know that they're almost at the end, and that makes them very dangerous. They know that they have nothing to lose, and they're not saving anything for later. The bulk of the work in Rafah is carried out by Division 162, alongside the activities of the Shin Bet, the Air Force, and other forces such as Division 99. Since the beginning of the operation, which began with the control of the Rafah crossing, the brigade's combat teams were deployed to the various sectors and began taking control of the Philadelphia corridor, moving from south to north. In some parts, the various forces also became active in the eastern parts of Rafah, although not in the heart of the city at this stage. Currently, the 401st Brigade's combat team is operating in the Tel El Sultan sector. The Givati and Nahal combat teams are operating in the Shavora neighborhood, and the 12th Brigade is operating further back in the Dahania area. After operational control of the Philadelphia corridor was achieved, the forces began locating an underground route and fighting tunnels used by Hamas to reinforce their position in the city, some of which, of course, crossed into Egypt. So far, according to IDF data, about 500 terrorists have been eliminated in Rafah, and about 100 entrances to tunnel shafts have been located. As I said before, the Rafah battalion was known to be one of the most dangerous Hamas military units. The IDF warned its soldiers before entering Rafah that this unit had received specialized training in explosives, setting booby traps for buildings, and making improvised explosive devices for use against vehicles and dismounted troops. As I mentioned yesterday, this is similar to the threat that was faced by the United States troops in Iraq in the mid-2000s, and it makes for an extra layer of complexity and danger. However, when the IDF took full control of the Philadelphia corridor, the supply of weapons, ammunition, and other supplies to Hamas was effectively cut off, and this was a significant blow to the organization's ability to keep up the fight. Slowly but surely, the IDF was able to gain operational control over various neighborhoods in the city. Based on the stabilization of the attack lines, the forces go on raids in areas that are still contested, according to the intelligence that comes from the IDF and the Shin Bet Israeli security agencies. These raids have already resulted in the capture of large quantities of weapons and ammunition that Hamas has stashed all over the city. It is only a matter of time before Hamas runs out of the things it needs to continue fighting. However, Hamas has been preparing for this battle for a long time, digging tunnels under the city and storing enormous amounts of weapons and ammunition, as well as practicing the tactics of irregular warfare. One of their favorite tricks is to emerge from a tunnel entrance, fire anti-tank missiles or attach charges to armored vehicles, and then run back down to the tunnel shaft before the IDF can return fire. These tactics are sometimes effective, and they have managed to inflict casualties on the IDF. However, each time they pop out of a tunnel shaft, they also show the IDF where they are, and so these tricks only work once, if they work at all. Meanwhile, the IDF Southern Command understood the patterns of operation, and together with air forces are trying to provide as much protection as possible to the Israeli forces. IDF drones often spot the terrorists at the moment that they emerge from these shafts and are able to give a quick warning to IDF troops in the area. Just last week, the IDF released footage of a terrorist coming out of a tunnel shaft holding an RPG weapon very close to an IDF vehicle. He was spotted from the air and shot before he could fire. It is also important to understand that Hamas uses civilian infrastructure such as schools, mosques, hospitals, and even private homes to store weapons. The IDF has discovered large amounts of weapons and ammunition in such places, and Hamas has even fired at the IDF from within humanitarian safe zones and tents. At this point, you might be wondering how the IDF will know when its goal of destroying the Rafah battalion and the other remaining Hamas military formations has been achieved. As in many military operations, the fight against the Hamas battalions also begins with the construction of the intelligence picture. Before the IDF begins to dismantle a battalion, it collects information on the locations of the terrorists, the identity of the commanders from the junior to the senior level, and their locations. Apart from this, the army collects information on the locations of terrorist infrastructures, compounds, and headquarters. In the next step, the army plans how it will act against the battalion and finally goes into battle. The goal of this is to damage the command and control centers and eliminate as many terrorists as possible in order to significantly damage the capabilities of that battalion. The IDF decides that the battalion framework has been dismantled as soon as they can determine that 70% of its fighters, commanders, and infrastructure has been rendered combat ineffective. However, Hamas is also learning and adapting itself to the changing circumstances on the battlefield. As previously reported, it can be observed that Hamas has begun to shift to guerrilla warfare tactics. Even after the large majority of the fighters in the battalion have been eliminated, the remaining terrorists have standing orders to engage in this method of irregular warfare. After acting in small groups or even alone, this is the less effective but still dangerous way that Hamas can fight against the IDF. With all of this in mind, it is so important to spread the truth. People need to understand what really is happening in this war in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, and in the northern border with Hezbollah. So please take an active role in spreading the truth with us by subscribing to this YouTube channel and sharing us on social media. As the war in Gaza drags on and the northern border threatens to erupt at any moment, it is important to remember that there is another front in this war, and that front is Judea and Samaria. Many weapons are being stolen from the IDF and ending up in the hands of criminal organizations in this region, threatening the safety of the Israeli communities and Israel at large. The problem of stolen weapons and ammunition ending up in the hands of criminals and terrorists is a long-standing issue, but it's made worse by the chaotic situation in the Gaza Strip. Iran is also actively working to smuggle weapons into Judea and Samaria in the hopes of causing problems for Israel and opening a huge war on that front as well. There are also growing concerns that weapons are being smuggled into Judea and Samaria from Jordan and distributed to criminal gangs and terrorists. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on this subject, including with an upcoming in-depth podcast featuring me and my colleague Mati Shoshani. So please share and follow us and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And the most important thing you can do is join us in prayer for the situation, for the IDF soldiers, for the civilians that are affected by this war, and most importantly, for the peace of Jerusalem. Speaking of Judea and Samaria, the IDF the Shin Bet, and the border police moved in the last 24 hours to arrest 8 wanted persons throughout Judea and Samaria and in the Bekaa and Valleys Brigade. So please continue to pray for the safety of these security forces who are keeping everyone, Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians in this area, safe from terrorism. So far, since the beginning of the war, approximately 4,150 wanted persons have been arrested throughout the Judea and Samaria division and the Bekaa and Valleys division. Approximately 1,750 of whom are associated with the terrorist organization Hamas. So please continue to spread the truth, share, and follow us. And the most important thing you can do is unite in prayer for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.